What's up, guys? Untitled Studios here, and today, by popular request, and by popular request I mean I simply asked in my Discord server whether people wanted to see the Power Force review or a review of this Eureka. One person said this Eureka, no one else voted, so it's settled. Today will be the review of the Eureka AirSpeed 1 Multi-Cyclonic Bagless Upright Vacuum, the first Eureka that I've had in quite a long time. Now, this is probably not the fairest way to judge Eureka, since it is kind of a budget machine, but at the same time, I've used the budget Bissels, and they're very decent, nice machines for the price. But as we can see, this is the model AS2111. If I remember where the sticker is, I actually don't remember where the sticker is. Is it on the bottom? It is on the bottom. So, you look right here. Eureka, and it's model AS2111, and was manufactured in, I have no idea. So, this is, well, oh, almost dropped it. It's pretty much Eureka's answer to what appears to be their answer to the Power Force Helix Turbo, but the actual size of the base is about the same as the normal Power Force Helix, but it's got the same sort of thin window as the Power Force Helix Turbo, the 1701 model at least. It's got the same sort of 5 height adjustments, same exact sort of filter setup as far as the Cyclone Assembly. Actually, there's some dust here. This machine gets very dusty, and I didn't pull this all the way apart to the motor to clean it out, but I did wipe it off, and in just the time of it sitting here prepping for this review, it got dusty. Or at the very least, that's when I noticed it getting more dusty. So, not the best as far as filtration-wise. In fact, the filtration is pretty poor. Whenever I got this machine, it was completely covered in dust. But as far as the filter setup, we can see there's this little button to remove the Cyclone Assembly, and the button is very difficult to push, which I don't like. Like, it's very it's not a click. It's clearly like a little tab, and it's not smooth at all. You have to just push it really hard, and then it will just like barely pull off of there. So it's not the nicest thing in the world. And then, of course, again, the filter cover is this little tab, and then we got the filter right here, and it's just a pretty standard pre-motor filter. One thing I don't like about this Cyclone Assembly is there's a couple things I don't like. Number one, there is no trap door or anything like that to pull it off. If you want to actually empty this, there's nothing that just drops the bottom off. Although, I guess the one advantage of that is that then you don't have to worry about a seal that deteriorates and allows dust to get all over here, but clearly the filtration isn't that good to begin with. But it's very similar to the Helix Turbo, where it goes in through here, goes through the Cyclone Assembly, goes through a filter, and then comes out the top of the back, so of the bin. So that's very similar. However, this whole thing is, there's like this green section. It kind of comes apart, like there's this little shroud thing in here, but it doesn't come all the way off whenever you're pulling it apart, so it's very difficult to clean properly because it doesn't disassemble nearly as easily as the Bissels do nowadays. And that's kind of a problem, because this is prone to getting dusty and getting dirty, and with a bagless machine like this, you want to be able to clean it out. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of issues with performance and even noise later on. But as we can see, there's a little twist to unlock mechanism, so if we can twist this, which I don't think I'll be able to, and I think I almost, wow, so in that process I almost just broke this, but I think it's fine. Yeah, either way, you get the idea. So you just twist it to unlock. It's very similar to like what you would see in like a Dyson DC-04, or really any Dyson after the 01 and before the 07, where you have to pull the bin off, and then it's just the bin, and then you just dump it. And although one thing that's nice about that is that the actual inlet doesn't go through here, meaning that that's not an area where dust can get around and then get sucked into the motor whenever you first turn on the vacuum. So that's good, at least. And you can see there's a little suction inlet right there. And this goes back on. Again, it doesn't really click. You have to really push it on to get it to lock in. Yeah, there we go. It was a little bit easier that time, but getting it off is a big problem. But I guess the advantage of that is maybe it's so that way you don't accidentally unlatch it, but I think there's a way that you can make that easier without having this button be so uncomfortable to push. But yeah, either way. So you can see, and it's got this, you know, lime green and black and gray color scheme. So you can see it's a Eureka AirSpeed 1. It's got some scuffs on it. This whole base assembly actually disassembles very similar to a Phantom, where you've got screws on the top and the front of the hood actually pops off in order to get to the belt and brush roll. And this entire hood assembly is very cheap. You can see it kind of wiggle a little bit. And, you know, there's the lime green brush roll. It has white bristles, which I don't like because they're not as easy to come clean. But this actually does seem to be like a really nice quality brush roll. The bristles do stick out a decent amount, and, you know, they're not the hardest in the world, but they're not soft either, and they're fairly dense. They do seem to do a good job at cleaning the carpet. And even though this still has the original belt on it, it does still have some good tension. This takes style U belts, so if you need a belt for one of these, it takes a style U. Usual carpet height wheels. It's got a little squeegee on it, which I'll be honest, I completely forgot was even there. But that will definitely help with it picking up on hard floors. I haven't ran this on hard floors, but I'd imagine just having that alone is going to make it better on hard floors. So at least that's like one advantage it has over like the competing Bissell or Dirt Devil. Because Eurekas aren't very common anymore. I really don't see them at all anymore in the mainstream. You just can't seem to find them really anywhere. And if you look on Eureka's website, it's a barren wasteland. So I don't know what's up with that. We do have a hose as well. And the hose right here is one that you can just kind of pull off like this. And it's actually a pretty decent sized hose. It actually seems to stretch a pretty decent amount and have a pretty decent amount of reach. And which is really nice. So it actually does go to the ceiling, as you can see. And like I can literally almost pull this all the way to the ceiling and the vacuum has not lifted up at all, which that is a really nice feature. So it's really nice that this thing has a decent quality hose on it. And the hose, I would say, is much better than the Bissell counterparts because it stretches a lot easier and it seems to be a better quality hose and one that's much longer. So also as far as onboard attachments, this one, whenever I got it, it did come with all the attachments. So as we can see, it came with a little dusting brush, which, similar to a lot of the Bissell attachments, it has that little thing where you can take the Crevice Tool and put it on the end of it to make it act as an extension wand. So you can see if you just slide it into that section that's separated, if you can see where it is. There we go, just like that. Then you can actually use the Crevice Tool as an extension wand for the dusting brush and not lose any airflow. Meaning that with this long extension wand, which is significantly longer than the newer Power Forces, it's actually about the same size as the older Power Forces, as well as the Crevice Tool. The Crevice Tool is a little bit shorter than the older Power Forces, but the actual Crevice Tool is a lot longer than most of the modern Power Forces, except ironically the bagged version. But as you can see, if we take this hose and we pull it off, I don't like this cord clip because this hose clip because this hose clip actually appears to kind of kink the hose a little bit, which can be a little bit annoying. It doesn't seem like it's caused any damage to the hose, but the hose does appear to be kind of like, not warped, but just kind of a little bit not even. It's really hard to describe. But as you can see, if we actually put the extension wand on here with the aforementioned Crevice Tool and dusting brush, this actually does do a really good job at above the floor cleaning. Something that I didn't really think about before I sort of started looking at it a little bit more closely. This actually does do a pretty decent job at getting above the floor and doing pretty decently at dusting and all sorts of other stuff. And of course with the turbo brush, that would be better for something like carpeted stairs. It's kind of hard to get this off with one hand, but we can see that it also has the turbo brush, and turbo brush just kind of pops right up at the top here, and I dropped it. One thing I don't understand about this turbo brush is the fact that this opening is like a lot bigger than it really needs to be, because it just kind of doesn't need to be that way. If you put the actual hose on, it's got this like extra part that sticks out and doesn't look right. It almost looks like it doesn't even fit it, but it still seems to do the trick. I haven't really, honestly, I haven't used this turbo brush at all, so I can't really comment as far as how well it works. But once I use it, I'll update the review if I remember. And one thing that's nice about this turbo brush that I do really like is the fact that you can swivel this and vacuum the front of something. So if you want to vacuum like the front of your stairs, that's something that's really handy. And I wish more turbo brushes did that. So that's a really nice feature that I actually really like that it has. And of course it rides on board just like all the other attachments. So there's nothing that's, you know, not on board and has to stay out of the way. Another thing that I don't like is the fact that this has a separate like dial that you actually have to adjust it when you go from floors to carpets. But the advantage of that is that the hose is mounted higher, which in that scenario, in the area of reaching above the floor, or in the scenario of reaching above the floor, that's kind of nice. And that actually helps with the reach. But when you're cleaning anything that's on ground level, because of how lightweight this machine is, and the fact that the hose is mounted towards the top of the Cyclone Assembly, this tips over very easily. So if you are cleaning anything, you want to make sure you have like a foot bracing this, like bracing the back of this while you're cleaning. Otherwise, this is going to fall over very easily. As you saw in my Phantom Fury repair video, I was using the Bissell Power Groom, and whenever the suction was applied to the hose, it contracted it and yanked the vacuum towards me, and it fell on me. So, granted, this isn't as heavy as the Power Groom, but you know the difference is pretty negligible. But especially whenever you add suction to this hose, any type of stretchy hose, and Dyson owners know this very well, any type of really stretchy hose, once you add tension on it, which usually happens whenever you utilize the suction, it will contract quickly, and it will contract very violently, and as a result, you can yank the machine towards you and hit you, or hit someone else if you have someone near you. So that can be a problem. That's just kind of something you have to deal with a lot of budget machines. But the main reason to solve this, or the main way to solve this, is by mounting the hose lower. This is what Dyson did and Phantom, where they mounted the hose low, so it just pulls the vacuum with you, and it doesn't actually, oops, I didn't mean to press that button, that scared me, and it'll actually pull the vacuum with you instead of pulling it over like this one would. So that's one thing. And of course, you know, you have to have the dial to change from tools to carpets, which can be annoying, but it is there. So if your vacuum isn't performing well and you're trying to use it on carpets or on tools, just make sure it's put on the right setting. So that's one thing that you have to worry about. Although, one nice thing about that is that means that whenever you're using the tools, there isn't an open space where if the brush catches something and kicks it up, it doesn't blow in your face, because it just kicks it to the top of this section. Granted, it's going to fall back down, but then it's going to be in this little section right here if the brush roll kicks anything up, and then once you switch it back to carpet, it'll suck all that up. So that seems to be you know, kind of the solution to that. Another thing is that this whole middle section seems to be just like an absolute clog magnet, because any Bissell, you have the lower hose and then you have another hose that immediately attaches to. You can entirely disassemble the machine and get to any possible area where clogs would be. This is not like that. You have this entire section where if you have a clog, you have to like fish something down here and like wedge it through in order to push something out the other end. And that's kind of annoying. Granted, Dysons do the same thing, like the 07s and the 14s have like a very similar design to this, where it goes in the bin like this. So if something is clogged in this chamber, you have to push something through. But that's something where, again, compared to its competitors, isn't as ideal, because you can't easily take the entire machine down to the motor and service it if you need to. You have to do a lot of more disassembly for this middle section that, frankly, I didn't even bother with. So that's another little thing. And this entire base assembly feels very fragile, and I don't really like that. It feels significantly cheaper than the Bissells, and especially whenever you have this sole plate off. this entire like green section feels incredibly flimsy. And even whenever I put it in the operating position, I feel like I'm breaking it. Like whenever I push it down, like that, it feels like I'm breaking it. As if you do this on a floor, the sound is a lot harsher. And if you do this on any sort of floor, it's like a snap, and you feel like you just broke it every time you recline this thing. And that's not ideal whenever you want to feel like you have a quality vacuum. So, beyond that, I don't really think there's much else that I can say. Oh, another thing is that there's no cord hooks. And I don't like that. There are no cord hooks at all. These are completely fixed. So if you want to unwind your cord, you have to manually unwind the entire cord, which can be frustrating when, cheap $30, $40 vacuums have cord clips that you can easily swivel and then pull the entire cord off, either on the top or the bottom. On more premium machines, it tends to be on the bottom. On cheaper machines, it tends to be on the top. Either way, it's better than nothing. This has nothing. So that's another tiny little detail that I don't like about this. And of course, it has a steer cleaning handle, which is whatever. And no headlight, which I don't like. And overall, I believe was this 10 or 8 amps? Doesn't matter, it doesn't have a headlight. So, but yeah, that's the Eureka AirSpeed 1. So I guess we'll just go ahead and run this real quick. Alright, that's on floors. It's got the little cord hook, which is nice, it at least has that. And that's on. Alright, let's give this a run. It's got this little tab right here that you have to stick the hose in. Well, you don't have to, but you stick the hose in and clamp it down. It just doesn't feel the most secure in the world. But you can see, like, it grooms the carpet pretty decently. It's not too terribly loud. It has that same kind of high-pitched whine that a lot of modern cheap vacuums have. And, it does the trick. We can see that there's got a little bit of dust kind of clouding up the bin. So, I cleaned up a decent amount of fine dust. So, I vacuumed this carpet 2 days ago with the PowerForce Helix. So, this thing does seem to be a pretty decent vacuum performance-wise. And beyond that, there's not much else I can say. Obviously, I really like the hose. I really like the attachments and sort of, the above-the-floor cleaning experience. It cleans decently on carpets. The build quality isn't the best. But, it's missing, like, some minor little features that just seem weird, like the cord clips and stuff like that. And, it's just kind of weird in that aspect. But I can't complain too much. I mean, it gets the job done. I mean, it's still a decently easy machine to service. Obviously, this one is working, and, I got it for completely free, so I can't complain. Even had all the attachments, so it's definitely a decent machine. It's the only Eureka that I really have right now. I mean, yeah, actually, not even really. It's the only Eureka I have right now. Now, the only real Eureka that I'm really on the hunt for is a Eureka Whirlwind, or the bagged equivalent of that. I forgot what the bagged equivalent was called. Was it called, like, the World Vac or something like that? I don't know much about Eurekas, but, the Whirlwind, the first-gen Whirlwind, I believe, like, they had one in, like, a gray and yellow color scheme, similar to, like, a Dyson DC07 all floors. That's one of the vacuums that I pretty much grew up with and really kind of have nostalgia towards. It's a vacuum that my mom actually had before she got her Dyson, her 07. And it's one of those, out of like the budget brands, it's one of the 3 machines that I really have nostalgia with. Obviously the first being the Power Force, the second being the older non-self-propelled wind tunnels, bagged wind tunnels like the blue version, and the Eureka Whirlwind. So I would like to get a Eureka Whirlwind at some point, or the bagged equivalent, because I prefer bagged over bagless. But as far as the first Eureka that I've ever owned in years, because the last Eureka I owned was a Eureka Lightspeed, and it was like the rebranded version of the Maxima. It was in the same yellow color the Maxima was in, like the most common Maxima color, but it was the newer version. It didn't have the belt window, it didn't have the headlight. I don't know what else they removed from the newer versions. Maybe it had a slightly lesser motor. I don't remember. I got that one brand new and I sold it at some sort of yard sale that we had years and years and years and years ago. Well over a decade I sold it ago. And that was the last Eureka that I ever remember having. So Eureka isn't really a brand that I have too much experience with, as opposed to especially Bissell and Phantom and Dyson, but also to a lesser extent Hoover and Dirt Devil, and, you know, stuff like that. But it's decent. I believe they still sell these for around $80 or so. And honestly, for that price, you can buy a Power Force Helix Turbo for $60. And I would still recommend that over this, even though this would do better on hard floors because it has that squeegee. But other than that, you know, pretty much just pick up the Power Force Turbo, because there's so many features that has that this doesn't, and that's ultimately much cheaper. And I believe also has a longer cord, because this cord appears to be very short. So I'm pretty sure the Turbo has a longer cord. This probably has the same cord length as the normal Helix, as well as the same width of the cleaning path. But at least the hose is better, and there's a couple other features. But yeah, so it's roughly competitive. But, you know, that's kind of my thoughts on it. There's not really much else I can say. This video is probably not going to be the most interesting, because it's not like a super collectible machine, but it's the only Eureka that I've had in quite a while. So I thought I'd do a video on it, and I may do a demo on it as well. You know, like just vacuuming the whole house with it. But we'll see. But yeah, so that's the Eureka Multicyclonic AirSpeed 1 model AS2111. I think I remember that correctly. And this is Intelitech Studios signing out with the official review. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.